This lesson corresponds to Kittel and Hoffer's Introduction to Biblical Hebrew, Lesson 11. As always, our first task is to pronounce our main sentence for this unit. So let's try that. Vayetzeu lalechet arza Kna'an. Vayavo'u arza Kna'an. Vayetzeu lalechet arza Kna'an. Vayavo'u arza Kna'an. Vayetzeu lalechet arza Kna'an. Vayavo'u arza Kna'an. Okay, we can begin trying to make sense of this sentence by examining our first verbal form, vayetzeu. So the first question is, what is the form of this verb? Is it an affix, a prefix, or a participle? You will by now recognize that this is a prefix form of the verb. Here you see the prefix yod and the prefix complement shurek, or u, at the end. This vav patak double, is by now quite familiar to you as marking a vav conversive. The vowel under our prefix is a tzere, and so we have seen many times recently that the tzere under the prefix indicates that we have a first yod root. So if we want to parse our form vayetzeu, then we have a first yod root, yatsa. Our stem is kal, prefix, third masculine plural because of the shurek prefix complement, and this is a vav conversive. Put all that together, and the translation is, and they went out. Now we can move on to our second verbal form. Here it is, vayavo'u. In this case, we again have a prefix vav conversive. The vowel under the prefix is a comets, so you will have recognized that the comets indicates a hollow root or a middle weak root. When we see that comets, then we want to look at our second vowel. This vowel is u class, which indicates to us that the root is, in fact, a second vav. So this is our root that is by now quite familiar to us, which is bo. The stem is again kal, prefix, third masculine plural, vav conversive. The translation, and they entered. So these two roots, yatsa, which we just saw, indicates motion away from or out of. Bo indicates motion into. Okay, we can move on then to our next phrase, arza Kna'an. We'll start with the second word, which is simply a proper noun, Kna'an. In English, we usually say Canaan. This is the geographic region which will become the land of Israel. Kna'an, Canaan. Our second word is arza. Now, if we were to remove that ending and play with the vowels a little bit, we would recognize a noun, eretz. Eretz, of course, means land or earth. Now notice that eretz, when we put an ending on it, underwent a vowel change from to ah. So eretz became arza. This is true of segolets, which are an E-class segolet. Eretz goes to artzi if we add an ending. So my land, artzi. So the same thing will happen with melech. If we say my king and we want to add an ending, melech becomes malki. We also have E-class segolets, so sefer. which means a scroll. If we want to say my scroll, it becomes sifri. So segolets plus endings revert to a different vowel pattern, oftentimes to an A-class vowel, sometimes to an E-class vowel. There are also O-class segolets like Kodesh. Those are easier to recognize. The O-class is in the segolated form as well. Now, if you're interested, we talked briefly in class about why this happens. So the reason that we have A-class vowel, so melech becomes malki, is because in the precedent language to Hebrew, which we just call Proto-Semitic, nouns had case endings. So the word king in the nominative case would have been malku, in the genitive case malki, in the accusative case malka. Now Hebrew lost case endings, so you will have noticed that in Hebrew we're not declining nouns according to their function in the sentence. So malku just became malk. It lost its case ending. Now Hebrew doesn't like that consonant cluster malk at the end of the word, so what it did was created a segolated form melech to get rid of the consonant cluster. So malku in Proto-Semitic became melech in Hebrew. But when you add an ending to melech, it gets rid of the consonant cluster a different way, and so it reverts to the form that it had in Proto-Semitic. So melech, king, my king, malki, eretz, land, my land, artsi, and so on. Now, if you're not interested in the history of the language, you can just let that wash over you. But if you are interested in knowing why, that is the reason. So what we have here is our noun eretz with a hey ending. So our hey has attached directly to the end of our noun to produce the new form artza. Now, one of the things that you will learn in Hebrew is that heys attach to the ends of words for lots of reasons. And so one of the tasks of Hebrew is understanding what a particular hey on the end of a word means. What we have here is a hey that has attached without affecting the accent. So the noun is eretz with the accent in the first syllable. The new form is artza with the accent still in the first syllable as indicated. When a hey attaches to a noun without affecting the syllable, the accented syllable, it is a directive hey or a directional hey. And the directional hey indicates motion towards something. So we would translate to or toward and then whatever noun it's attached to. So the word artza in this case would be translated to the land. Now artza by itself really means to a land, but in this case artza kna'an is a construct chain. Since the absolute kna'an is definite, it makes the whole construct chain definite. So it means to the land of Canaan. Artza to a land, artza kna'an to the land of Canaan. Now we have this word, lalechet. Here we are looking at a new verbal form, one that we haven't seen before. So up until now, the verbal forms that we have learned are prefix, affix, and active participle. This is a new one, which is called the infinitive construct. Infinitive construct. Now, as we go, we will learn several different functions of the infinitive construct. They can do a number of different things grammatically. But for now, we will simply translate the infinitive construct like we translate an English infinitive. So to walk, to run, to go. Infinitive constructs are sometimes prefixed with prepositions. as is the case here. So the infinitive construct itself is lechet. The lamed is the preposition to or for added on to the infinitive construct. So la lechet is la plus lechet, preposition plus infinitive construct. Now you might be expecting the lamed preposition to have a vocal schwa instead of a kametz, which is normally how we've seen it, le. In this case, what has happened is the lamed has attached to the syllable that is accented, lechet. And so, for reasons you don't need to worry about, the schwa has become what we call a pretonic kametz. So, la lechet is just the preposition with a pretonic kametz attached to the infinitive construct. Now, lechet is actually not the regular form of an infinitive construct. It is an irregular form. It is the infinitive construct that is typical of first yod roots. So, for instance, the infinitive construct shevet comes from the root yashav. You will notice that what it has done is dropped its yod and then taken the remaining two radicals, shin and vet, added a tav at the end, and segulated. So yashav becomes shevet. This would mean to sit. Similarly, infinitive construct redet comes from the root yarad, which means to descend or to go down. Or again, ledet comes from the root yalad, which means to bear or to give birth. Now, our particular form is not actually a first yod. It's our cat that thinks it's a dog. Lechet, if we follow our rule, we might think it was yalach yod lamed chaf, but of course we know that it is in fact the first hey root, halach. Halach functions like a first yod, even though it's a first hey. So lechet means to go. This is the way that halach has been functioning and always functions. It is a first hey root that forms its verbal patterns like a first yod. So to parse this form, la lechet, we have our root halach, our stem is the cow, our form is the infinitive construct. Infinitives don't have person, gender, and number. So we can leave that box blank. And then our special feature in this case is a lamed preposition prefix. So to translate, to go, la lechet, to go. So if we put our sentence all back together now, vayetzu lalechet arza Canaan, vayavo'u arza Canaan. If we translate, then we see vayetzu, and they went out, lalechet, to go, arza Canaan, to the land of Canaan, vayavo'u, and they entered Arza Canaan, into the land of Canaan. So here's our translation. They went out to go to the land of Canaan, and they entered into the land of Canaan. Now you may have noticed that our two Canaans are spelled slightly differently. The first one has two patachs. The second one has a kametz and a patach. The reason for that need not concern you, but if you're interested, the reason is the second Canaan is at the end of a sentence and therefore has a stronger pause than Canaan in the middle of the sentence. This is called a pausal form, and often it lengthens the vowels. We'll talk about that more as we go. For now, if you're curious why the two kanaans are spelled differently, that is the reason why. All right, we looked at an irregular form of the infinitive construct, but before we finish up, we should look at a regular form of the infinitive construct. So we've learned the infinitive of first yods, which are irregular. For the strong root, the infinitive construct is pakod. Pakod. So the markers are a vocal schwa in the first syllable and a holem, O class, in the second syllable. Pakod. Note that the vowel pattern of the infinitive is uh-oh, pakod. So one way of remembering this is uh-oh, it's an infinitive construct. Jazz hands. Oftentimes the infinitive construct will take a lamed prefix, but it doesn't have to. So pakod by itself is the infinitive construct. If we want to add a lamed prefix to the infinitive construct, we would attach the lamed preposition to get our hypothetical form lefakod with two vocal schwas at the beginning. Of course, you know you can't have two vocal schwas in a row, so the first one will resolve to a hirek. So our form lifkod is lamed plus pakod, lifkod, to visit. Now, as I mentioned before, infinitive constructs are non-finite verbal forms. That means they don't have person, gender, or number. So when we parse pakod, our root is pakad, our stem kal, infinitive construct. We can leave the person, gender, and number box blank. This particular form has no special features. We'll translate this infinitive as we translate English infinitives, and so pakod, to visit. All right, that's the end of this lesson. You'll also recall that we are working our way through pronouncing Genesis chapter 22. So there is a video on YouTube, which I uploaded last week, where you can practice pronouncing Genesis 22. In a few class periods, we'll start translating Genesis 22. Right now, your task is simply to pronounce and to see what you might recognize, what you might be able to translate. All right, we'll see you next time.